What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Tell Me More podcast presented by Major League Success. I have Marco Paas with us. He is with Revolution Realty and East Coast Capital. And actually, you're going to be the first agent that I have on here that does financing and lending and real estate.
There we go.
So, the one, the only Marco. Marco, thanks for taking your time and jumping on and the Tell Me More podcast to kind of share your story. Obviously, we know each other a little bit over the last 12 months, 16 months, something like that. I know your story a little bit, but no, I'm excited because I know you have a different background than most.
Yeah, a little bit.
So I always like to start with childhood growing up. Can you kind of give us a little backstory of your childhood, what that was like, and kind of lead us up to, high school and right after high school?
Childhood, probably just like most others, spent a lot of time outside. We didn't have the tech stuff that everyone has today. So you had to find things to do. Spent every day in the summer at the pool. If it wasn't summertime, out playing, heavily involved in sports. A little different though, is I started working like at 8 years old. I took over from my brother who was a senior and started doing newspapers.
Okay. So
I delivered newspapers for quite some time.
Pass it down the family tree there.
Oh yeah.
And I see all the trophies and stuff behind you.
Yeah, most of that's Navy stuff right there.
Okay.
Which I'm sure we'll get to it at some point. Basically after growing up, doing all the sports stuff, graduated from Groveport, Masson right here on the southeast side of Columbus. After high school, that's when it kind of was like time to start figuring out what to do, right? Just like most other 18-year-olds.
Yeah. What, with the paper route, was that just kind of something that you did just to make some money, or was it kind of like your brother was like, hey, I'm giving this up, and you just kind of took it over?
I kind of helped out as when I was real little when he was doing it. And when he wanted to quit, my mom said, hey, do you want to start doing it each day? You already help out. I was like, sure. And little did I know I'd do it 365 days a year, every day.
How long did you do that for?
I was about 20.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So
wow.
Long time.
Is that kind of just what you did just during school, making money, or did you have another job? Or
throughout high school, I know there was not a whole lot of time with sports and everything. So just did that, wake up around 4 or 5 in the morning, knock it out real quick, and then go to school.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it was good money though for a kid. I mean, a few $100 a month when you're 15, it was lovely.
Yeah, but having that discipline, to wake up that early every single day, 365, and not missing a day.
Yeah, mom had to come in and get me sometimes, but.
So you do that throughout high school, graduate high school. Kind of what was the next path for you? College?
Originally went to Ohio Dominican. I was going to try to play baseball there. Went through fall ball and just realized how expensive Ohio Dominican was. So it was a tough choice, but I decided to stop going there just because of the private school money that it cost. Found myself up at Ohio State and went there for about a year. And just got to the point where I didn't want to go in too much debt, just getting the college degree. So stopped college at that point.
What did you focus on? What were you really going to school for in the beginning?
Like sports management, business degree in sports management.
Okay.
It was fun. I liked it. It was just, like I said, the cost of college. I didn't really have much assistance outside of me or financial aid. So
yeah. What years were you? What years were your college years?
Would have started in 2003, I guess, fall.
Okay.
And then off and on probably till 2007.
Okay.
With a 4-year that got a year and a half or two done.
Yeah, you were a little bit before me then, because I went to Ohio State. I originally went for accounting and then switched to their sports management program, which I always say is a joke because it's not really sports management at Ohio State.
No, basically just a business type thing, and you do a few marketing classes and different types of business, but they try to make you focus on sports, and then there you go.
Yeah. So you find out that, don't really want to do the college thing and take on debt. I guess what was the the idea behind it? Like, did you know that, maybe school wasn't for you, or that you really weren't going to use your degree? Because I feel like that's um, hard for, 18, 19, 20-year old to really make that decision at that time,
Yeah.
because not really knowing, what we
At the
want in
time,
life.
just, at the time, just, the cost of college and knowing that there might have been a little bit of combination of the cost and was I ready to be responsible enough to be there every day, because
Yeah.
just like any other 18, 21, I was probably making some poor choices at times. And, it was for the first time, school wasn't mandatory, right? College is, hey, if you show up, you show up. High
Yeah.
school, you had to be there. College, I found out real quick, you didn't have to be there. That's
Yeah.
probably a bad thing to learn real early. So once I got to the point where I felt like I was wasting money and not applying it the way it should be, I just knew that I needed to do something else, at least temporarily, until I could figure out what that next step was.
Yeah. What was that? What is that next step for you at that time?
At that time, I was doing some bartending, just different stuff like that. And I knew that wasn't the lifelong job I was hoping for. So ultimately for me, I ended up joining the Navy. I had to get out of not want to say the sphere I was in, right? The network, but just I had to go do something so I could kind of focus on something else. And then
Sure.
I could use that to go ahead and let someone else pay for my college, which then it made it a little bit easier to swallow.
Was that the driving force? Did you know that you wanted to go back to college, and you're just kind of looking at a different angle?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I always
Okay.
wanted to go back. And still to this day, I've got my degree with sports management and all that, and I would love to get involved in high school sports and stuff. It's always been a big part of my background.
Yeah.
Just haven't had the time yet. So,
Man, I've thought about, sports were big for me growing up too, and that's partly why when I realized accounting wasn't for me and I switched to
uh,
sports. Um, but man, I always think about, going into coaching, but then I'm like, I don't know if I could deal with the parents.
no, I don't think
You
I
know.
can't do with the kids these days either. Coaching flag football right now, you got some mouthy 8-year-olds. It's crazy.
Like, have you ever heard of suicide sprints? That's what we're about to be doing. So you joined the Navy.
Mhm.
How long were you in for?
Ended up only being about 12 years. Had to do a early retirement due to some foreign little medical things that I still don't quite understand, but
Sure.
they said I wasn't fit enough anymore for some reason. And it all worked out in the end, you know.
And you were doing school while in the Navy as well, or did you get
Yeah,
out and then go back?
I did it while I was in the Navy. So
Okay.
I ended up getting my degree. I think it was 2016 is when I finished it.
Awesome.
And then that's the same time I came back to Ohio was 2016. And
Okay.
I was doing
Awesome.
Navy recruiting.
Okay. And then what made you decide to get into real estate?
That's actually a funny story. I was guy I worked with in the Navy. We traveled around Ohio, Kentucky, and West Virginia doing workouts for some of our spec war candidates. And his family wanting to say they owned a title company or something out in Dayton. We just
Okay.
were always talking about it. And there's a few parts of this, but he was like, "Man, we're done by 1 o'clock every day because we're up at 3 or 4 in the morning on the road." And I was like, "I know." So we ended up. He was talking about getting his real estate license. I was like, that's not a bad idea. So I thought about it a little bit, and then I was lucky. One of my best friends, and still argue to this day, my best friend, he was married to a real estate agent, Laura Listerberger. She does
Yep.
very well in real estate.
Yep.
I've known her for probably going on almost 20 years, it feels like. So I reached out to her and just kind of got her advice on it. And she was able to share a lot of the pros and cons and what she really enjoyed about it versus what she didn't enjoy about it, how it kind of fit into her lifestyle and just all those things. We took all that into account. And then I talked to my wife and just made the decision, you know what? Get my license. The Navy pays for me to go to school. So I'm one of the few people that didn't go to Hondros. I got my license through Columbus State because
Okay.
the Navy would pay them, but not Hondros for some reason.
Interesting.
So, yeah, so I did that. And then, I looked at it as it was just extra income. Maybe if I sold a house a year, that pays for vacation.
Yeah. Yeah. And what when you got in, how long were you doing Navy and real estate?
So I got my license, I'm wanting to say it was March or February of 2019.
Okay.
So from 19 to I got out, I retired April of 21. So roughly 2 years, I was kind of doing both.
Any real supporters, doubters when you kind of were, and I guess probably when you got your license, you probably really weren't thinking career change.
No, not at the time for sure. For me, it was more of a, you never know what's happening with the military. Even if I wouldn't have got retired, I didn't know if I was staying in. I did
Right.
my 10 years because I wanted to pass my GI Bill to my kids. So that's all done. So at that
Yeah.
point, I didn't really have nothing holding me to the Navy anymore. Everything I wanted out of the Navy, I got, so I wanted to have something that would kind of be a buffer, I guess you could say, and an
Sure.
easy transition to where once I did find what I want to do, I still had some little bit of income coming in, or at least put some back
Yeah.
to kind of help with that transition. And then, I tell everyone I got really lucky. I'm from the area, so I have a lot of referrals, centers, COI, center of influence.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest thing that helped me was I built a new home in 2016 when I got here. In that neighborhood, I made everyone there. They're all building new homes there. So everyone that decided to leave, most of them that knew I did real estate, they used me because I was in the neighborhood. So that was if I didn't have that, there's no way anything else kind of goes in the same direction as it did.
So you're a neighborhood guy, huh?
I was, yeah.
You actually talk to neighbors and stuff.
A little bit, yeah. Kids, kids are always out and about, so you end up running into everybody, and you walk your dog, and you have to talk and be nice whether you really want to or not, right?
Yeah, people are always like, I'm like, I don't really like talking to my neighbors, even though I do real estate. I don't really like talking to the neighbors.
No, luckily it was people that weren't my actual neighbors. They're all throughout the community. So
Sure, sure. So you get licensed in 2019. Instant success, struggles. Kind of walk me through kind of the first couple years.
I would say that the first year was kind of what most people told me would be, you hit a little hot zone for a second during summer, right?
Yeah.
I was lucky because being stationed here in Ohio, working with the Navy Command, there's people coming in and out every 3 years, right? People are rotating. So I had a few listings immediately from guys I worked with,
Nice.
which kind of helped me out. And then a few people moving in, they referred them to me. So I had just almost the relocation thing going on with the military. So the first year I was more than happy with how I did, especially considering I thought it was going to be a part-time, hopefully sell 1 or 2 houses a year gig.
Right.
And then second year, same thing, a little slower during the winter, January through March. And then, as you know, March of basically 2020, everything started getting a little bit different.
Right.
It just took off from there.
Oh, that's awesome. And you really just have focused on just your sphere of influence, right?
Yeah. Basically just talking with people, literally using everything I had to learn in the Navy for recruiting. They teach you all about sales and all this stuff, which I hated being that sales guy. I didn't want to be that guy.
Sure.
I always just felt like if you be you and talk with people, they're either going to enjoy being around you and use you, or they're not. And I'm like, all right, this guy, it is what it is.
So those agents that are coming in and really wanting to tap into their center of influence, their sphere of influence, whatever you want to call it. Obviously, like you said, you're from here. You were in the Navy for, just over a decade. So you had some of those contacts as well. But for those that are, looking to really focus on that sphere of influence and building their business, what are some of the takeaways that you had when you got started?
I would say you got to understand that just because know different people and stuff, you got to remember you're not the only realtor, right? So don't ever take anything to heart if they use someone else, because you're going to end up being unhappy, and you're going to use that as a way to try to sell someone else when that's not what you want to do, right?
Yeah.
You want to just be you and genuine with people, and understand that you're not always going to be the agent they use. I've seen too many times where you got these stories of, oh man, they sent me this hate email or messaged me on Facebook. Really? That's crazy to me to think of. So it's, at the end of the day, just, talk to people, but understand that, you're not going to list every house that your friend owns. You're not going to be the buying agent every time a buyer, one of your friends own.
Yeah, I bet you probably took a lot away from the recruiting part, in regards to that mindset, from the
Yeah,
Navy.
it did. It definitely helped. I think the biggest thing it helped me was just being able to talk to people. They always said be comfortable being uncomfortable, right? That was
Yeah.
always one thing because I had to talk in front of classrooms every day. So it's like, oh gosh, I got 30 kids looking at me, a teacher back there that really probably didn't want me there to begin with. So you just end up having fun with it, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I always tell people, turn it into a game.
mhm.
Real estate, it's just a contact sport, right? And you're going to get way more no's than yeses. So,
Yeah.
fall in love with the process. Understand that business and sales is just math, and
Mhm.
the rest will take care of itself.
Yep.
Marco, when did you decide to get your lending license, and how did that come about?
So as a real estate agent, obviously I worked with different lenders. One in particular always had really good success with, as far as, he was just very good communicating. Met him through a family friend, or through my wife's cousin. I met him through there. And when I found out I might be getting out of the Navy, I'm a guy that needs to stay busy. If I'm not busy, then I end up finding myself just doing things I probably don't need to be doing, right? Going to Roosters at noon on a Wednesday, staying there too long. So, so I was talking to him and I asked him just how he liked lending or whatever. And at the time, I didn't know you could have both licenses. I was just talking one day, and
Yeah.
uh, he was like, "Why don't you get your license and make that your new day job, like the Navy was?" And I was like, "Is that even allowed?" And
Yeah.
he's like, "Yeah, he's obviously there's rules to it, certain things, guidelines that has to happen." So I looked into it and saw that it was just like real estate. You do a few courses. Those courses are really just a filler, right, to get the checks.
Yeah.
But then you actually have to study and learn everything before the test. So I just did that and kind of replaced the Navy, I guess, the morning hours I always did with them with lending. And I'd go to his house every morning around 7 or 8 a.m. and he would just teach me. Because there's one thing knowing the different stuff, but actually applying it into the system,
Sure.
learning how to put it in correctly, and then just learning to meet those timelines. And I think actually being a realtor helped me on that, because as realtors, we know how important it is to get that communication from the lender.
Right.
Because you always got another agent calling you saying, "Hey, what's the status?" "Oh, I don't know. Let me check with them." Right. So you kind of take that and understand the things we really like as realtors and the things we really dislike as
Yeah.
realtors when it comes to that process. And I was kind of able to apply those things. Communication obviously is huge, right? But then not only knowing the deadlines, but explaining why we have the deadlines of what they are. So that way everyone's not just guessing, like waiting to hear, "Hey, what's up with everything?"
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm sure it's helped both ways,
Mhm.
understanding the real estate side and then now understanding the lending side, because I think you just can't work with the same client on the same deal, right? You can't do the financing and
Yeah.
the agent
So
side.
I guess by the rules, unless anything's changed in the last few months, you could technically do conventional if you wanted to, as
Okay.
long as it's disclosed. Most lenders, the actual business won't let you, right? So I don't really do that. I will explain to people I need to disclose if I am licensed, but if it's on the lending side, tell them I don't want to be asked any real estate questions.
Yeah.
You have a realtor for that. So it's just setting those boundaries at the beginning, because at the end of the day, we all know this business is relied upon on referrals and
Yeah.
your past work, right? So last thing you ever want to do is cause an issue with any deal because of the different license and stuff like that. So
Yeah. When did you decide to get into the financing side?
since I was being separated in April of 21, I got my license in February of 21.
Okay. And just kind of built it the same way through your sphere of influence?
Mhm.
All right. No, that's awesome. Like I said, I mean, I think you're the only person that I know that carries both,
I know there's a few people out there, but I'm not exactly sure. I personally don't know them, but I've heard through different brokers that, when you're going through the process and everything,
Yeah.
they share their experiences and, whatever they can sell to you and all that stuff and go from there.
Long term, you plan on just continuing doing both?
That's a great question. It probably changes daily. Because both have their pros and cons, right? Real
Yeah.
estate, I love that I can do it when I want, right? As far as hours, I love that I can kind of make time to do what I need to with the kids and wife and all that. And on the lending side, I love that I can sit here in my office, right? Like I'm not going out too far. So both have the pros and cons, but real estate, they're stressful times, but lending sometimes they're stressful every day, just because there's a timeline. Everyone has to be working in sync to get it done on time. And if the one person's not, well, then you're sitting there trying to figure out why it's not moving, in the right direction. And you don't ever want to be the reason for the deal not to close on time.
Yeah.
Right? Because if it doesn't, it's not going to be the underwriter. It's not going to be the processor. It's not going to be the buyer that didn't send the docs in, right? It's going to be you.
Yeah.
So
I like that. Real estate, sometimes there's stressful times, and in lending, sometimes there's stressful every days.
Every day. If you're working on a deal, usually there's some stress involved.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I kind of want to fast forward a little bit, because you're just kind of a couple years into the real estate side, really just getting into the lending side.
Mm-hmm.
What's a couple things that you're looking? Normally, I say what's one thing that you're looking to accomplish, but what's a couple things that you're looking to accomplish? Maybe on the real estate side and maybe on the lending side. In the next 12 months.
12 months. I mean, I always say continue learning to do a little bit better the next month than you did the previous month, right? So being so new to it, I haven't set too many goals, I guess you'd say, like, milestones that I wanted to hit, other than, I said once I had my license and I was in my first full year of both, I wanted to kind of hit 10 million in volume on each, 10 million in volume on each, right? That was kind of a goal if I could. But other than that, it's more just, I want to start learning how to not only use my center of influence, right? So I don't do too much social media. I'm not tech savvy, right? Leads, I've never really used them. I was always like, why would I pay for this? And the reason why is because in the Navy for recruiting, when we had leads, the success rate was, if you're lucky, 1 in 10, right? And that was usually a lot better than what real estate would be as far as, so I'm a numbers guy. I'm like, so 1 out of 100 or 2 out of 100, man, do I want to, just time is money in this business, right?
Yeah.
So you got to make sure you're applying your time to what you can. But what I've learned over time is eventually you do have to start relying on those other resources, because at some point your center of influence does dry up. You're not always going to have family or friends or neighborhood buying and selling. You're going to have to meet these people that you might not know right away. Get in front of others. And so I think that's the biggest things I need to learn to apply those other ways to generate business, so that it's not a constant grind of just sales.
Yeah. I always try to tell agents, 2 to 3 business pillars, right? Obviously your sphere of influence is going to be one, but find another one, maybe even 2, that become foundational pieces to your business, right? You don't have to do it all.
No.
I think there's hundreds of ways to go out and be successful in this business. Just find which ones that you enjoy doing most, and then just show up consistently and do those.
Yeah.
Because, I think a lot of people are seeing right now, right? Market, is balancing, rates are going up, and
a little bit.
Those people that bought, 2 years ago, last year with low rates, they're not going to be selling anytime soon.
Or refinance.
Or refinance anytime soon. So, it's what are you going to do to kind of help insulate your business a little bit?
Yeah.
So,
correct.
No, that's awesome. What are you looking to accomplish in the next 5 years in both?
Oh man, I wish I could think that far ahead. Yeah. I think everyone's goal is to eventually be able to do this business and still have that very balanced work-life balance, right? I think when you get into this at the beginning, you're so driven to kind of get your foot in the door and, I don't want to say make a name for yourself, but get that reputation where you can get the job done, right? And get those referrals. And at the end of the day, it's not only about taking, I always say you got to take care of your clients, right? That's number one. But every agent remembers the deal they do with you as well. So even though you're taking care of your client, there's a way to communicate well and make sure that you're just responsive and you build those relationships with other agents. Some of my best advice I've ever been, that I've received is other agents or brokers calling me and just talking to me, and not necessarily just to call and say, hey, are you interested in switching or anything, but just, hey, I noticed this. Got a minute to talk? Well, yeah, perfect. I would love to hear what you say. And taking all that to be able to apply it and then be able to have that work-life balance in a few years, where now I'm still grinding, but I've got hours that I grind, right? And now I can spend a little more time focused on things at home as well.
Yeah, it's one of the things, and Ryan, but Ryan talks all the time of, as an agent or even an LO, I guess, in your case too, if you're just a solo agent, we have a job, right? And that's clocking in, clocking out whenever our clients need us.
Correct.
But the goal, to your point, is how can you create that business that will allow you to kind of step out a little bit.
Yeah.
Right. Or step out completely. Right. Because some people can step out completely, but even just step out a little bit to where maybe now in the beginning, you don't have to do showings every single night because you have, a small team or, someone helping you out doing it. And that's where it's like creating an actual business at that point.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
What do you think that you need to do in order to kind of put that in place?
Oh, man, if I knew, I'd already put it in place there, John. No, I would say, the biggest hurdle at the beginning was to understand that we can't do everything. If you want to truly be able to help more than one person at a time, you've got to rely on others. You've got to understand that other people can do the job. Right. Yeah. For a while, it was just, I didn't want anyone touching my stuff. It was just, let me go. And I think I've realized that in order to continue building, you do have to put a team in place, whether it's a real estate team or whether it's just a team of people, assistant, right?
Yeah.
On the LO side, I have the best assistant, which actually she's no longer my assistant. Now she's my processor. But I mean, she literally makes my job 10 times easier.
Yeah.
I've been trying to move that way on the real estate side where I could start building a little bit of a team. I think right now I just haven't taken that step yet because just like everyone else, it's just been a grind right now with how busy everything's been. So trying to create that time to do that, it's challenging. It's not impossible. Other people do it. You just got to find the way to balance that and make it happen.
Yeah. Working, on the business versus in the business, and, scheduling that within the calendar to kind of put those activities in place to make sure, you can do that. So, and I think it's great because not many people, realize early on that you can't do it all.
Yeah.
It's just impossible.
Not enough time in the day to do it all. You just,
unless you just like working those crazy hours, but I would assume most people don't.
Yeah. There's some late nights involved. And that's, I think, the first thing that you realize. You're like, man, there's other things we could be doing right now at 11 o'clock at night. Got to try to figure out a different way to approach this.
Waiting for that, remedy to come over or that contract, extension or, whatever the case may be.
Oh, yeah.
Marco, I was asked this this is probably about a month ago now. And it just kind of stood out to me because typically we don't ask this question or we don't get asked this question. What's a legacy goal for you?
Legacy goal. Oh man. When you say legacy as in within the industry?
No, just in general, how I got approached or asked by this. Mike Doyle was actually reading a book and in the book, it talks about, your 100-year goal.
Okay.
And how the majority of people don't get asked that question because obviously 100 years from now, we're all dead. Right. Yeah. But, what is that? What do you want to leave behind, when you're no longer here?
Oh, wow. I think I kind of know the answer to that one, actually. Growing up the way I did, Dad worked a lot, never really saw him a lot during the week, saw him on Sundays. That was basically it because back, when we were growing up, if you're working outside or something, you're doing those things.
Yeah.
I want to be able to leave something behind for the family. I don't want to say build generational wealth because that's tough to do. Right. But I want to be able to provide for my family and where it doesn't just cut off when I'm gone, if that makes sense. So I'm trying to show them what a work ethic can do, right? But also provide a life, a life that I was unable to have as far as certain things that we can provide our kids. So, I think that ultimately everything I do is to make sure family is put in a good place for, long time to come. So I would say that's always my legacy goal right there, is just making sure that the kids are taken care of and put in a position where they can also hopefully go do something successful as well in their life.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. I want to be respectful of your time today. I appreciate you coming on and sharing. I always end with this last question. And if you could give the audience one piece of advice that you wish that you maybe had in the beginning, or that you just want, an agent to know, what would that be? Or on the lending side, give one for a real estate agent and give one for the lending side.
Well, on the real estate side, is actually the best advice I still to this day had when I was getting my license. Mike Toronto, he's with Signature, I believe he's still with them. Went to high school with him, and I was talking to him, just picking his brain one day, and he told me the best advice for a new agent that he's ever gotten, and he passed on to me, is when you go meet with different brokers, right? There's a lot of really good brokers out there. I wish I could be with a lot of brokers, right? You can only be with one at the time.
Yeah.
Everyone's situation is different when you're first getting your license. For me, it was, I didn't know if I was selling one house, 10 houses, 20 houses that first year, because I had the Navy was still my primary focus.
Right.
So he told me, when you go in and meet with these brokers, that you're the one actually interviewing them. Right? Everyone thinks you go in for an interview to meet with these brokers, see if you can get hired. He said, no. He goes, you're going to go and interview them to see if what they can provide is what you need to succeed. He goes, at the end of the day, just remember, the sign is always a sign, but people are working with you. Right. So I took that and it hit me a little bit, because I was like, you know what, you're right. Even though this broker might be best for this person, it doesn't always mean it is for this person.
Right.
Some brokers, they offer a lot of things when it comes to the marketing and the assistance, right? And just all that support that some people might need at the beginning. For me at the beginning, I didn't feel like I needed a whole lot of support, because I didn't know if I could even do the job, if the Navy was going to let me, right? So I think that's what I always tell any newer agent that's getting their license, is don't only be influenced by others, right, of what they're telling you. Go ask the questions that you want to know, that's going to basically better you as an agent, and then go that route, at least to start. All right. Just because you go somewhere doesn't mean you're there forever.
Right.
On the lending side, I don't really know. Yeah. It's one of those things where get that balance, right? Just like real estate, things happen all through the day, right? Whether it's in the morning, evening. If it comes in at 9 o'clock, usually it can be answered at 9 a.m. the next day, right? Make sure you separate that work balance with your family, because at the end of the day, you start driving a wedge because you're always focused on one thing, then it's becomes a little more difficult once you are off the clock. So
I think that can apply to the real estate agent side as well. Two great points. I always tell people, the brokerage, who's going to help serve you right now where you're currently at and where you want to get to, but that may only get you to that next step. Who's going to take you to that next step, right? So never be afraid. And you're spot on, and especially in our business, there's so much fluff and sales, to get you to come there, really, really understand exactly what you're looking for. And I think that's hard, right? Because they don't teach us what to look for in school. They teach us to pass the class, but they don't teach us, what to look for. And that's why, this podcast and is important to me, because that's what I'm trying to help, right? When you get out of school, okay, that was great, but here's kind of what you need to focus on. Listen to these stories, listen to this advice, to really have success in your business.
Correct. Yeah. I think at the end of the day, it's don't be scared to ask questions, especially newer agents. If anyone ever makes you feel uncomfortable for asking a question, well, then they're probably not someone that's going to be lasting a real long time in this business anyway, as far as having someone behind them and supporting them. because, like I told you earlier, I think I've learned some of my best things from other agents that I didn't even work with.
Yeah.
Or other brokers that might have just taken the time to call me and just discuss those things because he thought something he saw could have been a little better or something. And I mean, that's just crucial to, I think, anything and to being successful at anything is taking anything you can learn and apply it. Never be scared to learn more, right? I know we always talk about find what your niche is and go with it. That's true, right? Because if you can do something really good, keep doing it, right?
Right.
But don't be scared to kind of bring in other knowledge too, where you kind of become a little more well-rounded with other things. Because even if you're not doing that job, you might be able to help a younger agent with something that helps them, right? That ends up coming back around.
Yeah.
So
no, exactly. Well, Marco, thank you so much for coming on today. Those that are watching, if you are an agent and you want to pick his brain, or if you're looking to buy, sell, or if you need someone to help, with the loan, his number's down below at the bottom of the screen. But Marco, for those that are listening in, what's the best way for people to connect with you?
Probably the cell phone right there, 614-452-0482. It's always it's always in my pocket or right here on my wrist, right? No, I appreciate you having on me. It's been a little while since we've been able to catch up, so appreciate it. And yeah, thanks.
Yeah, we got to get a beer again soon.
Start doing some of those IPA things you always put on your coaching, right?
Yeah, that's how we got connected over the IPAs. You were thinking beer, and I was thinking income producing activities, right?
I think I finally just learned what IPA meant in your world because I just always assumed it was beer.
No, we definitely we'll get together and we'll have a beer sometime. But Marco, thanks so much for coming on and just sharing your journey. Like I said, you're but one person I know that has both the real estate side and the lending side. So I'm looking forward to seeing both take off for you. Over the next couple of years and into the future.
That's the goal. So
awesome. Well, we'll talk soon.
Yep. Take care.
All right. See ya.
Thanks.